Hello, welcome back to another Elevation Association Experience podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Nelson, and joining me today is the man, our very own wizard, uh, Mr. Ryan Passey. Thanks for coming
Hey,
in, and joining me.
good to
Jared
be
is on his bodybuilding show this weekend because that's what he does, and he can do that. And I only dream about doing that. Actually, it freaks me out. Just the food alone, I couldn't do it. The guy is on another plane. I think he's crazy, Ryan, but let's
Yeah, I think he's
love it.
crazy. It'll be nice to have him not so hangry when he gets back. So
That's true. Good point. Well, hey, I wanted to talk. I had Ryan kind of in a corner today, and so I thought I'd pin him down so we could talk about some of the stuff that he really is a genius on a lot of levels, and I wanted to share some of his genius with you all, and kind of get a chance to pick his brain over some stuff. Ryan's in the trenches more than most of us will ever be on a given week. And Ryan, you get a unique perspective on the tools that any office needs, because as we dive in and work with offices, we get to see the things that work and the things that don't. And so I thought today it would be smart to get into the tools that offices need, and specifically the softwares that have those tools or that support or supply those tools. And so I want to just kick off and have you give us a rundown of like a real 10,000-foot view of, in your experience, what are the primary softwares that or the primary tools that any office would need.
yeah, it's kind of crazy when start thinking about dentistry. You don't think about the software side of things and how much is needed to run the business. Everything from the practice management software that's needed in each practice, to the data analytics, to the patient communication side, imaging. You've got your accounting side of things, which is also super important, insurance, and then if you have any kind of team or leadership software that you implement within the practice. But all of those are super critical and important for a dental office to function at a high level, right, and stay organized. But there's just so many components within a dental practice and so much need for kind of unique software components that play across the board that and it's kind of interesting as I work with offices, everybody's got like a mixed bag of these different kind of softwares within their practice. And so it's been kind of nice to sit back and see what works well, what's needed, what really helps move the needle in certain practices and stuff. And then um, and what's super important and what's kind of fluff and those kind of things as you go through it.
So what are we if you meet with a office, what are the glaring defects? Like if you're like, "Whoa, how do you function without that?" Obviously you have to have, your Dentrixes, your, Eagle Softs, your operating softwares, your clinical software. Um, But beyond that, what are the ones that you are seeing like, holy crap, you absolutely need to get what?
Yeah, like the practice analytics for me is, obviously that's kind of my realm of expertise and where I spend a lot of time is being able to analyze data in a way that makes you see your practice clearly and be able to make good decisions in the practice. And so having a good set of analytics is super critical. I had a interesting experience this week where we had a practice reach out to us that had a referral from Vets for Dentistry on a practice, and he was interested in coaching, kind of a new dentist that had just started to practice and was interested in getting some kind of coaching. And we offered to do free growth report and kind of sat down and visited with the dentist a little bit, and it was just interesting, like from his standpoint of like not not really wanting to commit to analytics or those kind of things because of there's an additional cost with those things. And it's just it's unfortunate because it kind of ties your hand from a standpoint of wanting to be able to help somebody improve their business. If you can't see what's going on, you're blind, right? And so you can't really offer good help or solutions if they're unwilling to kind of um, look at the analytic side of things, right? So unfortunately, when we talked about doing, some free software to look at the practice or to kind of get in and to really be able to help coach somebody, you need to have tools. You need to be able to make a meaningful assessment of the practice and then give direction based on this, on data. And because he's kind of unwilling to take a step there and look into analytics, that unfortunately we weren't able to work with him at this time, which is kind of sad because, like, again, if you're able to have good analytic tools and take a look at a practice, you can really help them move in a good direction. But if you don't have that tool of, like, where are we currently sitting on metrics? Where are we against benchmarks? Where are we? How's our hygiene producing? What's our reappointment percentage? How much is the doc producing per visit? What's our price structure? If you don't have some of those basic things, you can't really provide value or give direction for a practice. So just to practice having those tools is super critical to being able to make decisions. It's like being blind. You're just kind of like moving forward without any real direction with your practice if you don't have some of those key performance indicators within the practice. So yeah.
You know what I think it's analogous to is when I've had the chance to go on several humanitarian aid trips, and I'm going to use our first trip to Africa before we had X-ray set up, right? We didn't have imaging done. And I think it's the same as trying to operate a clinic without imaging. You can sort of do it. Your practice management software will give you some, and it gives you a little bit of feedback. And it's become, and I think data analytics has become so important that a lot of these practice management softwares are now trying to integrate more analytics into their programs with varying levels of success. But when we were operating, and I think that this is what's ironic about this, is that I don't know any dentist that would operate their practice without imaging, but they can't make the connection between operating your business side of your practice without the same type of diagnostic tools, which is what analytic software is. It's the same as imaging. It allows you to see inside and see what's going on and extrapolate more information than what you can just see on the surface. And I think that's really important that that connection be made, is that if you're operating your practice without some type of analytics and someone to understand and be able to read the analytics, just like you can read x-rays, it's the same thing as trying to operate your clinic without x-rays. It's tough to do. Can you do it? Yeah, you can do it, but it's on a basic level, and you're really hamstring or held back by, like you said, you're blind, right? You can't make good decisions. When if you've got a patient that comes in and you're trying to decide whether to do a root canal or an extraction or fill or whatever, and you have no imaging whatsoever to go off of, that's rough, right? But we see that all the time. And I think that the other thing that you just tapped into is that there's this idea of like, oh, I can't afford to do that. Well, you can't afford not to. And the cost of it is not exorbitant. It is something that you should work into your budget and should be so that's a great point, Ryan. And I like that, the idea of you're kind of flying blind. I agree with that 100%.
Oh, absolutely. Like, you just don't know what you don't know, and if you don't take a look, and I think your analogy was fantastic, especially from a doc's perspective of, like, you really need those tools to be able to see what's really going on. I did a growth report for practice yesterday, and their pricing was in the ninth percentile. Like, there was like $2 million on the table just on pricing alone. But if you don't take a look at, like, where you're really sitting on that stuff, you just don't know, right? Because when's the last time you did a price change? You don't know what your competitors are charging for price. What's the standard price in your zip code. And like, we've seen worse than that, a little bit worse, but this was pretty bad, when you're looking at it like, wow, how much money is just being left on the table in the business. And you're just, you're priced out of your, the market really on some things. So, but if you don't know that, if you don't take a look and be like, where am I on my pricing compared to my zip code, it's interesting. So, yeah.
So dental analytics is a huge thing, and there are some caveats with that, I think. Like I said, I think that, you're getting a right now we're seeing a shift of, like I was saying earlier, about all these, practice management softwares trying to integrate. What are you seeing with those trends right now, Ryan? Where are you seeing, like, what varying degrees of success are you seeing with that versus, a strict analytic software like Practice by Numbers, like Jarvis Analytics, like Dental Intel? Why would I go with one over the other based on what you're seeing?
So, over the years, this become a more common practice with, as we, as we start working with, clients, like they're using more and more cloud-based, um, operating systems as you move forward. And one thing we notice is like they're super powerful. The cloud-based ones, like you can go in and you can get pretty much anything you want to find. You just not have to know how to go get what you want to find, is what I find. Is sometimes it's like, instead of a clean dashboard with some really powerful metrics that you typically get with like a dental intel or a practice by numbers, and even some of those can be a little complicated. Is that these cloud-based ones are super powerful, but you almost have to be an engineer to extrapolate the data that you're trying to get. Like, it's surprising for me because some of these are built by, engineer companies, engineer software developers, but they're maybe not, developed by dentists or business owners that are like, these are the top 40 KPIs that I want to see in my dashboard. I think that's what you find with like a dental intel that's been there so long, is like the metrics that you're looking at are pretty important metrics. They're easy to find, and that's one of the reasons we like using them so much. Is it's like, I could get on there and be like, how much is this hygienist producing per visit? How much does she produce per hour? Like really quick. Where if I want to find that within some of these different cloud-based ones, you've got to create like this, complicated report to do it. You can do it, but you've got to kind of build these out to get the data that you want. Or how many, like a simple one that we get all the time is perio diagnosing and acceptance. Like, how many patients were presented with periodontal disease this week, and of those, how many scheduled an appointment to get that procedure taken care of? And some of these cloud-based ones, it's hard to go find that data. And so that's what we find sometimes. It's just there's certain metrics that are a little bit harder to find. We have a guy that pulls data for us. So every time we bring on a new practice, if it's non like dental intel compliant, Preston's got to go out and learn a new system, Tab 32, Archie, Curve, these new ones that are coming on. And you can see why docs are wanting to use the cloud base. There's so many benefits to a cloud based system. I just don't think they've quite caught up with precise analytics yet. And I think that will happen at some point. But because they're so powerful and there is so many benefits to being able to access your data wherever you're at, or multiple practices. We're bumping up into that a little bit here since, you guys opened second practice, with some of these traditional old school server based softwares. There's some limitations there as well, right? With certain things. So hopefully one of these, companies will get everything right and dialed in. If you want some suggestions, reach out. We'll help.
Yeah. And there is, like, there's kind of a sweet spot, right, Ryan, that we found, that between what your practice management software you're using and what your analytics software is that there's a sweet spot between the combinations you can put together there. And yeah, I definitely, if you want to know what that sweet spot is for your specific practice, it's reach out and we can help you, especially if you're building out. If you're new or you're taking over a practice, is a great time to talk about that and to help kind of get you situated.
No,
I
I
want
think that's, I think just to before you move on off of that, because I think that's an important topic, is we've kind of identified what we consider like the top 45 metrics in any practice. And so we've got a built-in scorecard that we use when we work with a practice, whether it's a DI compliant or not. And then what we try to do is just make sure we're able to capture these metrics that we feel are super critical for each practice that we work with. So and so that's what Preston does, is he tries to go into these systems and identify, well, these are the ones that Elevation Association consider super important to track, and then how do we go get that data and then review that with the practice owner on a weekly, monthly basis.
and I don't want to throw rocks in any specific softwares yet, but there are definitely some that are very hard to work with. And what they, like you said, I love that you brought up that what the engineers think are important are not the same things that the doc or the office manager will think are important. And we found that just trying to get basic, simple KPIs pulled down, and we couldn't get. So just be careful in the software that you purchase, especially a practice management software, because that conversion, if you are moving from a server based to a cloud based program, that is a huge shift and you have to relearn the system. So we don't bite that. There are some of those cloud-based practice management softwares that do not party with, they don't play with third-party analytic softwares, right, Ryan? So
Yeah.
like they just won't merge. You can't
Well,
not pull the data.
well, and part of their stick is, I mean, part of their whole sales pitch is there's no need for a third party analytics, right? Because everything's housed practice management software, patient communication, and data analytics. They're trying to like simplify things, which you can understand why they would do that, to try to get everything under one software roof or one program, so that you're not using you know, different programs within the office. But yeah, so, but a lot of them just don't talk well with some of these other third party um, platforms for sure. So, yeah.
Well, I think, and again, if we're going to beat a dead horse, it's that you need practice analytics. You need that in your office. That's the first thing you mentioned, right? So, as a bare
Right.
necessity, you have your practice management and you have some type of analytics, but you also have to have someone that can help you to interpret the data. If you should have someone, either whoever it is in your office that can help you with that. We are obviously very, very good at that and can offer that service. But someone needs to be able to look at that stuff. We have some docs that love it, right? Like that's their jam. They love looking at the data. But I get it. Some people hate looking at the data, but the point is that someone should have a finger on the pulse of the practice all the time. And you're not going to get that unless you have data analytics. I want to switch gears a little bit into to patient engagement software, because that's hot right now. You've seen a lot of, especially with AI taking over. We're seeing a lot of stuff like, Weave has got some stuff out there. Lassie, there's some, different types of insurance based stuff. So what are you seeing on that front, Ryan? What are you seeing as far as how important is that to have? I mean, that's something that as AI is shifting into all of our practices, how important is this patient engagement software? I mean, we use Modento through Dental Intel. It's kind of part of the package, and
Engagement now, yeah. So
yeah, engagement. So what are you seeing on that front?
that that's a huge part of the obviously the practice. Some different things I've noticed over the years that we work with practices and stuff too is, one, I think that dental specific practice communication software is typically superior to ones that work with a broad range of like medical and professional communication. Sometimes I don't think they tend to do as well with the dental terminology or communication as someone who's just specifically dental specific. So that's one thing we notice is there tends to be a little bit better tools available when the software is dental specific. So and a little bit better um, platform for a dentist to use with the practice. So that's one thing we've noticed. Again, it's like you're saying, it's such a big portion of communication now with the patients. It's, the text reminders, the emails that go out, campaigns that you can market to your internal patients. There's just so many opportunities to get a good system that has all of those tools available, and then uh, utilize it. The ones that I find easy to is the ones that take out a lot of the mental strain for your front office to try to figure out, like, what is it that I need to do. We came up with I think Dan put together a really cool texting program based on psychology and stuff. We were able to kind of create an outreach program for hygiene and reappointment scheduling and financial follow-up that kind of works well or pairs well with some of these patient communication systems that takes away the mental strain of the team members trying to figure out what text do I need to send to this patient, which has been kind of fun to see, get some of the feedback on that. But, it still requires that someone's up there managing the communication and doing a good job of like reviewing the text, responding in a way that the practice fits practice culture and practice standards and those kind of things. That communication is super important. So um, the tool we made from that is kind of pretty cool to be able to copy and paste certain responses back to the patients and kind of help them work through doubts and fears and obstacles as you kind of work through that. So
That's probably a separate podcast as far as
yeah,
like, as I was saying, is that we need to give a little groundwork to this, lay out what's happening at Wood River Dental. And what we had was a situation where with the transition over from dropping Delta, you have a 6-month period where you need the deck to reshuffle on your patients, right? And so you get some fallout in your hygiene schedule. And from that, we're running about 75% capacity because of the fallout of going out of network, as the patient deck is getting reshuffled. And you're going to have 6 months of that. And that's because you schedule your hygiene patients every 6 months, right? So as we're approaching, month 6, I was looking at that patient base and decided, okay, we got to do something different to help the front desk to do their job. And so I started breaking down these what is the real thing that keeps patients from scheduling, right? And it was something I wanted to base on more than just empirical data. I wanted raw, real data. So I started digging into the psychology behind it, what communication experts had to say behind it. We took that information, we built out this basically this algorithm. And from that algorithm, it was literally like a ACLS algorithm, ask this question. If the patient says yes, then you go to this next question. If the patient says no, you do this next thing. And you literally go down. And then Ryan, in his genius, took my algorithm and he plugged it into an app and created an app that literally allowed our front desk to be able to take and send. By the way, text messages work infinitely better than phone calls do. And this is based on data. Again, some of the data and research I did, I wanted to find out. I didn't want to just shoot from the hip. Your response rate on a text message is way higher than it is for a phone call. So just keep that in mind as you're trying to empower your front desk. We Ryan created this app. We would love to show anybody this app too. It's very cool. And it allows our front desk to then send out various texts. They can customize it. They can change it. They want the verbiage a little bit different. And it literally will put their name in. It'll say, Hey, Sue, this is Sandra from Woodward Dental." And then it says based on their need or their situation, whether it's financial, whether it's treatment, outstanding treatment, whether it's a hygiene appointment they're trying to fill, it'll send a very specific text that is built off of communication expert verbiage and psychology to get people to engage with you. And I don't know, Ryan, like the girls have liked it. They've really enjoyed using it,
Really
right?
like it. Yeah. Well, that was one of the things they say. It's like we're scheduling much more patients. We're getting they're responding is kind of the overall um, feedback is like, yeah, they're responding, and so then they're able to engage and set appointments, get payments on outstanding um, debt, those kind of things. So that's been great. It's been fantastic. I think again incorporating the AI into there, and as far as I know, there's no other software, even in these practice management communication, that does the text for you and is focused on like overcoming obstacles. So that's one thing I think that's been genius in that is that you're trying to get the patient to engage and then discover what's the reason. Is it financial? Is it fear? Is it trust? Is it, one of these other obstacles? And then you can, the girl can select one of those, obstacles, and then the text changes on, so that the
Based on
outreach
the algorithm.
based on the algorithm, right? Like, okay, this patient's struggling financially. What's the text I send back? And it takes that, takes the front office gal having to think through those responses, because some of you have an untrained front office gal up front that I don't know how it, you know, what do I say back to this patient? And so it's kind of cool to just walk them through that tree, you know, and to get them in a place where then they make a phone call or get something scheduled and get them on. And then the other cool part is now it gives you a dashboard as a practice owner to be able to sit back and be like, what outreach happened this week with the um, with the outreach program? How many patients were scheduled? How many did we identify were inactive? How many did we're going to follow up with in 30 days? All of those things, you can kind of see that at a glance, which is super cool. So
Yeah, because there
yeah,
was a big there
yeah,
was a big hole, right? As far as like data goes, the feedback data, no analytics software, there's no like Mango, the phone you communicate. Nobody offered us any way to get feedback data on outreach. We just were going unless you have a front desk person who literally writes down how many people they call, how many people they engaged with, how many people converted, into an appointment. That's what it takes. And so this software is pretty rad because it shows us that all of that. It gives us that information, which
yeah.
as a
I
practice owner and a manager, that's huge, right?
mean, how long have you been like, how are we following up? What's going on up front? Like, and I'm like, I know we're doing it. I just, unless we go back through and count the texts and
Right.
count, like count the phone calls, like I don't know how to respond to you on this,
Yeah. What was it's frustrating. It was as an owner, it was frustrating on my side because I didn't know what was being done. And as the business manager, it's frustrating on your side because you're like, I don't know how to get this data easily to be able to or to ask the front to get it. So we said, screw it, let's take the bull by the horns and we're going to do this ourselves. And so if we're having this frustration, we imagine that there's other offices that are having this frustration. Okay,
well, that's
so
that's it's one of the things I love about EA is like we have our test kitchen right
yeah,
downstairs and up the road a little ways. So is that you guys are practicing dentists. We're in the trenches every day, and going through the same pain points that all the other dentists experience and stuff. So and again, I think like that gives us an advantage to be able to be like, here's an issue, and it's probably not an issue just for us. It's an issue that, all of our dentists are experiencing to some degree. And then, how do we solve this problem?
Yeah, totally. I I think the other thing that we need to talk about before we wrap this up, Ryan, is the importance of some type of meeting software. I think that meetings are undervalued because most meetings suck, and most meetings could be fixed with an email or text. I hate meetings that I come to, and I'm like, seriously. When I was in the Air Force, I was like, just send a text out. Like this is meeting is unnecessary. Just like send a mass text out. We'll be good. Um, those types of things kind of grate on you after a while, and really leaves a bad taste in your mouth for meaningful meetings. And I think the reason that most offices don't, and I want to, you and I haven't talked a lot about this, so I'm curious what your thoughts are on it. I think most offices don't have meaningful meetings because there's no structure there by which to have the meeting, and it's just shooting from the hip, or maybe somebody took something from, you know, some course they took or from their church or whatever, and they try to integrate it, and the meetings end up being not very meaningful. And they don't, people, becomes a complaint fest. That's all it becomes is like, oh, great. Here's an opportunity for me to go to complain to the boss about all these things that have been bugging me. And that's really frustrating as an owner. You just walk away with feeling burdened and drained. So I really do believe that those two things, that there's not a good structure for a meeting, and that meetings typically are draining, not, not, they don't feed anything. They're not meaningful. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about like all of the meaningful softwares within a dental practice and things that you use to help facilitate the business, one of the big missing ones in almost every dental practice is a way to communicate with your team. Like it's one of your biggest investments, right? Is payroll. You've got all
Yeah.
these bodies, and it's like, how do we take all the other information and make ourselves better, more efficient, more organized? How do we communicate with each other, and how do we level up our practice, right? Because we've got all these data analytics, we've got all these systems, we've got our patient management stuff, we've got patients, we've got all these things, but like, how do we as a team tackle all of this efficiently? How do we communicate with each other? How do we solve problems? How do we, do all those things? And so, yeah, the big missing software in most practices is some kind of like uh, team management platform, right? And so that's super important to then, have a good meeting. And we, Jared's always using Buck's phrase, you got to slow down to speed up sometimes. And, taking an hour or hour and a half every week to slow down, get together as a team makes the other, 39 hours in the week way more productive, like if you just come together, get organized and have a good meeting, then it makes the rest of the week so much better because everybody's, problems are getting resolved. Everybody's communicating. Everybody's got a seat at the table. And then you're off and going for the next, week. And then you have it again the next week. And so, we're big components on having weekly meetings with the team because again, they're a huge investment for your practice, and getting your team to be efficient and effective makes that ROI on your investment so much better because now you're taking better care of your patients, you're not leaving money on the table. The front's doing what the front should do, the back's doing what the back should do. Your hygienists are performing uh, at a high level, and taking that time to have good meetings and again invest in your team some time, some organization, and that is super critical, just super critical.
Yeah. You just hit on something that has a passion button of mine. That's probably the wrong phrase to use. Anyway, I'm really passionate about this. And that is that this idea of investing in your practice. We talked about it twice now. We've talked about it financially, and we've talked about it with time. And Judas, if you are the bottleneck of your practice, get out of your own way. Like take the time and invest some the invest in working on the business and invest in spending the money where you need to spend the money, doing things like analytics and things like that. Like, get out of your own way. You're probably, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I can't afford to have analytics software, or I can't afford to take an hour each week to have meetings, then you are the freaking bottleneck of your practice, and you need to get out of your own head and get out of your way. Like, you are the problem, and so that needs to be said. Your office people are thinking it. I guarantee you that much. The number one the issue that people have with any practice is people, and they get the frustration comes from people, and the reason that that's done is that people aren't managed well, and it's not managed well because there's no how are you managing it? If you're just putting out fires all day, that's going to lead to that's the fast track to burnout and frustration. So I'm trying to remember, Ryan. Maybe you can remember better than I can. When we took off, we've talked about this in podcasts before. This idea, Dr. Buck Drew's principle of slow down to speed up. We took 2 hours a week on Monday mornings. We blocked out from 7:45 until 10 o'clock for team meetings. And that's with the understanding that we would do what's called a level 10 meeting. And that has a very specific structure to it. That we actually have a software that we use for that meeting so that the meeting stays on track. And we'll get into that in just a second on what a level 10 meeting entails. But um, the big thing is that we actually, by slowing down, we actually increased production. We didn't go down. We never missed that 2 hours of production. And that's two docs too, by the way. That's not just one doc. That's two docs,
And for
um,
hygienists.
four hygienists. And then for another hour, it's two docs and another hygienist plus treatment coordinator. So and Ryan is in all of these meetings. And by doing that, we actually increase production, not decrease production. And we've seen that a lot, right? Like when the team slows down to speed up and gets organized, we actually see an increase in production, increase in collections, decreases in headaches, much better optimization. And I think that's a massive point to make, is that you got to slow down to speed up, and that means investing in your practice, time, money, resources. It's necessary.
Well, I think one of the interesting things that also happened in that same time frame of us doing those meetings is turnover. Like, we have almost zero turnover at this practice. I I don't know, it's been 3 years since we hired the last person. Like, I think part of that is just because everybody's got a place at the table, everybody's got a voice to be heard. Like, I think a lot of people get frustrated in work when they don't have an opportunity to voice their opinion or be a part of a team or feel like they belong. Like, I think having those team meetings uh, obviously changed the culture of the practice. But one of the measurable benefits of that was the lack of turnover in the practice, right? Because people are like, I love my job, I love coming to work. Where else do I get to be a part of, what's going on, have my voice heard, be felt, be recognized, celebrate our wins, all those things that we do every week with the practice. But when you look at, like, when's the last time we hired somebody, right? Like, we'd have to break out the ads for, new employee. I don't even know where they are. So, it-
I mean, that's a good point. If you have patient churn and you have employee churn, that's a symptom of a sick practice. Just so you guys are like, gosh, I can't keep somebody, and I get it. It's market specific, but also, like, you know, just pay attention to that. You may have some organizational or cultural issues. Again, that's a podcast for another time. But
but, but
uh,
you look at I would have thought in our area, it was market specific also when I first came on, but we had some turnover, right? Like,
yeah,
but since we really, like, kind of dialed it in, hired the right people with the core values that we believe in, again, like, the turnover was just really dropped. But a lot of it was just putting in again, some of the culture, some of the, those things just really help do that because we live in a pretty rough place for employment, like keeping good employees.
Yeah,
And so, that was another eye-opening thing for me as well, having ran other businesses up here. Because the valley can be very, transient. So, and so, being able to create an environment where employees feel valued and heard, and I think has been super important. So,
totally. I 100% agree. Yeah, it's been, and I think that we need to talk a little bit about what we've done a little deeper on a very fundamental level because we're talking about software, right? Like we've used a couple different, we've traction tools, we've used, Bloom Growth for this. Those are not dental specific softwares. It should be noted, but they're incredibly successful softwares because that's how important having meaningful meetings is. And this was all generated, just to give it some background. Gino Wickman and his traction team, they initially developed, and I believe it was based off of Lencioni's, right? I think it was his. I can't remember whose framework it was. If it was his or if it was Wickman's, but they developed a platform for having what they he called a level 10 meeting. And what that was is where it's highly structured, it keeps people on task. And Jared and I have talked at nauseum about this idea of an issues list, right? We love the issues list from the meeting. If nothing else, the issues list is a game changer and a lifesaver. But it organizes the software itself. Just speaking to the software itself, gives you a central hub by which to have meaningful meetings, right?
yeah, the EOS is awesome.
So, Ryan, I love that. Like, again, at EA, we have our own test kitchen. One day, Ryan comes up to me. He's like, I got something out. You're going to love this. You need to come check this out. So I go back in his office. Ryan's created a EOS based level 10 meeting software specific for dentistry. And I was like, what? It had all of the right features. It filtered out the stuff we didn't need. It had a built in scorecard for any office that uses it that are dental specific. It can customize the dental specific KPIs in it. It even has a tangent button, which I don't understand what the purpose of that is. I don't really understand. I don't even know how that
Tangent
works.
button.
That it like, yeah, so I mean, it's pretty rad. So talk a little bit about why Ryan did you develop that? What does it do? And I mean, kind of brag on it a little bit. I want you to kind of talk about that and why is it important for an office?
So again, like Dan was saying, we got really into traction, EOS, which is entrepreneurial operating system from Gino Wickman. In fact, he's speaking at the Dentist Success Institute with Costas, I think this in a few months.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, in
and
June.
just again, it's a fantastic book for any business that's between 500 employees. It's an operating system on how to really take your business to the next level, efficient meetings, all of those cool things. And so we used the original Traction tool software, which was great. It transitioned into Bloom Growth, which again was great. But again, there was always things about it that we were like, yeah, this is great, but I wish it could be different. But we're not programmers, so at the time we didn't change any of those things or make adjustments for the dental specific side of things or add in cool tools or features that we we felt were beneficial and necessary. So like any other software, it got to a point where they came in and were going to double the price of the software we were using. And again, we use this software not just at our practice, but we use it with all the practices that we work with, so that we have efficient meetings, we help solve issues, we have goals, we have follow up that's in the system. And so, uh, what did you say? Like necessity is the mother of all invention or something?
Right. Yeah, that's right.
So I think with that, it was like, hey, we've got to look at like a different option for this. And so it was like, well, why don't we just build our own platform and take the stuff we love, incorporate it, and then add in the stuff we've been wanting to do for years that we haven't been able to do. Like let's no longer be limited because we're working with a different program. Let's build our own. And so we were able to, again, with the AI and some of the stuff that's available now, we were able to create our own in-house software, which takes all of the great stuff from EOS and implements it into EAOS, which is Elevation Association's operating system, and really takes the dental practice communication with your team to the next level. So we've taken all these things we've learned over the past 6 years of working with dental practices and really streamlined, like, here's an efficient platform for meetings, for team communication. It gives your team a place to come in and put their issues in the correct meetings, to have meaningful goals. Everybody's got a quarterly goal, milestones to reach their goal, and then and then we were able to run these meetings based off the information that's in there, and be able to follow up on to dos and issues and goals and all those things within the practice. Communicate headlines, and so it's been great. So it works great, and then we also control the software. So if there's, we just had a conversation with Armin out in DC. Shout out to Armin, who's a periodontist out there. He had a idea about project management capability within the software. So we were able to incorporate the project management feature. So now, if you've got like a big project coming up, like a grand opening or open house at a new practice, or implementing new software in the practice, you can go and type in what's the project I'm working on, who are the team members that are going to be involved, what's the time frame and the goal, and then the AI will produce, like, here's the project list of everything that needs to get done, and then you can assign the employee who gets what task, what meeting that they goes in, and then you can follow up on those tasks and meetings. So it's super cool. So
That's so rad. Yeah, I think, like, if anybody's interested in checking this stuff out, like, just reach out to us. Matter of fact, we just had an office reach out to us based on I think we said it in passing, and a doc from another state reached out and said, "Hey, I heard about this software. I want to learn more about it." And we're like, "Yeah, let's go." Like, it's not even all the way cooked yet, but we'll show you. So that was pretty rad.
and that was great to meet his office manager and go through the platform as well. And again, we often talk about visionary integrator combo at a practice, but sometimes it's like, getting the boots on the ground, people who are involved in helping you manage your team, to kind of look at the software and be like, this would really make my life so much easier.
Yeah, empower your team, right? The So basically, I'm just kind of I'm summarizing in my head, Ryan. So we've got your practice management software, you've got your analytics software, and you've got your outreach software, or external software outreach communications, and then your internal outreach and communication software. So stuff that you want to use with your team for communications and meetings, that type of stuff. So would you say that that's kind of, I mean, not getting too deep into, you know, external things like Mango. Mango is a phone system. It's not really a software, right? So I don't want to get too far into that. But would you say that those, in your mind, are we missing anything, or are those the four essential softwares that every office should have?
Yeah, in addition to like the imaging and those kind of things. But yes, like, exactly, practice management, your analytics, your outer communication, your inner communication, super critical to run a successful business, a successful practice. Is, being able to have that software to keep you organized, on track, moving forward, towards your goals.
Well, I want to give an open invitation to any docs that are out there that if you want us to do the same thing, if this is something that you want to empower your front desk with, and you want to take a look at some of this software, we'd be happy to do a demo with you guys and show you. We'd be happy to meet with your office manager or whoever it is that's responsible for that. If you've got questions yourself about ways to get involved with any of this, if you want a free growth report, if you want to just hash over like some of the challenges that you're facing and some solutions that are there, we're available for that stuff. So, um, you know, more than likely you'll end up talking to Ryan. So we want you to get familiar with him. Really tap into the genius that he is. He's a asset that we would love to plug into your office. And so reach out to us at elevationassociation.com. You can hit us up at elevationassociation@gmail.com. You can go to school.com. We're on school. So, we're everywhere, I think, right? We're trying to hit all the high water marks, all the social media. But yeah, reach out to us and let us know. Ryan, any other thoughts before we sign off?
No, I think it's been great. Like Dan said, I think we'll have within the next week or two, we'll have a software page up on our website so you can see kind of how the software works within the practice and then reach out for a demo, those kind of things. So.
Rad. Well, hey, Ryan, appreciate you sitting down with me and chatting on the podcast. And yeah, we'll check in with you guys next week. Have a great week, everybody. Cheers.